Hey guys, what's going on? This is Kyle at Projection Hub, and today I'm going to be talking about how to write a business plan for a new non-emergency medical transport business, or NEMNT business. Now, before my time with Projection Hub, I was an SBA loan officer for almost 7 years. And so in that role, that looked like helping startups and existing businesses and acquisitions put together their loan application and then take them through that SBA loan process. And so reviewing and helping them with their business plans, reviewing and helping them with their projections, helping them collect their documentation, guiding them through that process. And so just a chance to work with lots of different businesses of all shapes and sizes, including a couple of non-medical or medical transport businesses. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you a full fictitious example business plan that's structured in a way. It's a free template. You can download it, use it for your own purposes. You can follow along this video with it, and it's filled with different resources to help you. But I'm basically going to go scroll through the whole, sorry, as my dog exits the picture here. And I'm going to go through the whole thing, and I'm going to be talking about, the different sections, what I would recommend including in there. But the main takeaway for the video is there's going to be 5 key things, 5 key areas that are basically going to level up the business plan that I think will take it from good to a great business plan and increase the chances of getting an approval for an SBA loan. And along the way, I'll talk a little bit about some SBA, tips and some resources there that can help you out with the SBA process if you're planning on getting some financing or some funding for your business plan, for your business, because that can be a challenging part. So if at any point, you have questions, just leave a comment down below the video. We're pretty responsive in answering questions down there. You can also contact us directly at support@projectionhub.com. You can talk to me or one of my teammates directly. And yeah, just Projection Hub, I should mention, we've helped more than 50,000 different small businesses and startups create financial projections for their business plans or loan applications, their pitch decks, you name it. And so we'll talk a little bit about financial projections today as well. So if at any point you like the video, well, I guess like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. We release a lot of great content just about starting and running businesses. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so here we've got our free non-emergency transport business plan template. As I mentioned, there's a link to this down in the description below. You can grab your own copy of this, no strings attached. And, obviously you can see this is branded with our stuff, but you can change all of that out. But, we've got kind of a full thing in here, right? So I'm gonna walk through this again, make some comments on the structure of the business plan. I'm not going to read the whole thing, and I'm certainly not going to write the whole thing in front of you. But I'll make some comments on the structure of the business plan. But then mainly as I get through those 5 key areas, that's where I will show some demonstration, because I guess what you see in this business plan template, it's going to be a general, like a generic fictional example of a business, but everything that's included is going to be like the minimum requirement. Like, you just need to have it in your business plan. There's not really a way to shortcut your business plan, but those 5 key areas I think are the opportunity to go above and beyond and kind of really make a difference to your lender, more so than you would in just a normal business plan. So that's why I'm going to focus more on those sections. But yeah, let's kind of jump straight into this. And the first thing I'll point out is, in our table of content here, this is not a super long business plan. Now, again, it's set up in a little bit way to kind of help you as like a resource, right? So, each section says like briefly introduce the business's background and services, and then it's more of a general little paragraph. Whereas like in your version, like you obviously don't need that sentence in here, and you probably will want to write in a little bit more specificity. I'm surprised I said that word right the first time I tried it. So again, this is a fictional example, but you're going to probably want more detail, and as much detail as you want in some of these sections. But one point I'd like to make is your business plan doesn't have to be super long. I think a lot of people get really intimidated by a business plan because they think, I have no idea how I'm going to write 50 pages about a business idea. And one, this template should help because it's giving you a starting point. It's giving you a structure. It's giving you, you could come in here and you can make your space, and you can write your own version of that paragraph with as much detail as you can think of. So it gives you a guide to kind of step through that process. So I think that should help quell that fear a little bit. And 2, really long business plans, I would say, are not that helpful to you, right? Like, your business plan, like, and coming from my experience as a loan officer, when someone handed me a 50-page business plan or 100-page business plan, There's just no way we were going to read all of that, which means a lot of it's going to get skimmed. And so the shorter your business plan is, now you can make your business plan too short. 5 pages, way too short. Less than 10 pages, probably too short, because you want to make sure you get good details in there. But we want to make sure the business plan is jam-packed with good details. It doesn't need to be a page turner, it doesn't need to be like really entertaining or anything like that. But the longer that business plan gets, the more some of those key details can get lost in the mix. So don't overwhelm the important details or overshadow the important details with fluff, is basically what I'm trying to say. But you can see the general structure we're going to talk about. And the next thing I'll mention is that in this example, almost half of the business plan is the financial projections. Your business plan is very important as a standalone document, but your financial projections are probably the most important section of your business plan. I'm not just saying that because we're projection of, I'm saying that as a former SBA loan officer. We'll read your business plan once or twice, but we'll review your projections a lot of times. That's what gets looked at over and over and over again. So just pointing that out there. Okay, so first up on this section, again, it'll take us a little bit to get to the first key point, and then we'll hit them pretty quick. First section is going to be the executive summary. This is kind of like the cover letter to a resume for a job application, right? So this is kind of our first impression of your business. And so you don't have to say everything here. We probably want to keep it to be about 1 page total, but we want to hit some of the key high points. I don't believe in this idea that you need to hide certain things to later in the document so the person gets to that point. I think it's better to be forthcoming and share some of the big things up front, because that kind of sets the table for the reader. If it's a lender, it helps set some context. It helps them understand, how big are we looking here? How much is the loan amount going to be? How experienced is this person? So you want to be upfront with some of those things and don't just keep them guessing until they get to the end. Because if they get to the end and then they read a thing that changes their whole perspective, then, it's almost like they should start over again, which they're not going to do. So a little company overview, just about what you're trying to do. So let's assume this is going to be a startup. What is this? What is our we're starting MediMovers here in Indianapolis, which is where I live. And so again, non-emergency medical transport, talking about what kind of non-medical emergency transport we're going to do. For your objectives, my recommendation would be, and I like in this example, there's some specific numbers. So in the short term, achieve a client base of 200 regular businesses. Client satisfaction rate of 95% within the first year. I like that those are measurable. That's a really important thing to do. And then long term, again, increasing fleet size 50% annually based on demand. Introduce 2 additional services by 5th year, such as mobile health. So I like that. It's very specific. Like, I would recommend doing that rather than just being like, we're going to be the best non-emergency medical transport business. You should actually say something that is measurable. Mission statement is kind of forgettable. I mean, it's important, but again, like, your mission statement isn't probably going to be groundbreaking. It's not going to change whether someone's going to give you money or not. So include one, but don't feel like you need to spend too much time on it. Yeah. Unless that's coming from a place where you have like a really raw and specific personal experience relating to this type of industry, then you might include that, because that might give the reader some additional, again, context for your situation. Keys to success, again, you should include that. If they really are keys to success, I wouldn't just include things to include things. So like things that stick out to you, that's like, if these go right, then we should be really successful, then include those things. One thing this executive summary is missing that we should have included, and that is a financial summary, right? So you should have a little introduction to your financial section of the business plan. So maybe things like total startup costs, how much funding you're going to need. Those are probably the 2 big ones. Maybe like your estimated revenue for the first year or second year, you could include that, but definitely startup costs and how much funding you're going to need, because if your lender's reading this, you want them to know that on the first page. They might already know that from talking to you, but it's important to include that in here. All right, company description, kind of an extension of the executive summary, but now we can just start to talk a little bit more in detail about like who the business is. Again, a little bit more story here, maybe like the founder story, why you're starting this business, a little bit more about you as the owner and like your experience and why that's relevant. Legal structure, kind of self-explanatory. The unique selling proposition is a big one, because this is one where people have a tendency to make it generic, right? They might say something like, we're going to have the best customer, support or satisfaction, best customer experience. That's great if that is actually true, but if everybody thinks they have the best customer experience, then that doesn't really set you apart. So is there something that you're actually offering that nobody else is? Maybe that's a certain specific type of certification or a license. Maybe that's a type of license that's hard to get and other people can't get it. So if you're gonna do a unique selling proposition, make sure it is something that actually makes your business unique and gives you an advantage over your competitors. Target market, again, probably a little self-explanatory. You'll expand the target market later in your business plan, but here's where you're kind of getting insight into, especially in this industry, the non-emergency medical transport, that can be a lot of different types of things. You could focus on, like senior or elder care. You could focus on, medical patients for a specific type of practice. Like there's different things that you could focus on here. So I would choose to be specific rather than just saying like, we'll help anyone who needs a medical appointment. While that is probably true, it's going to be easier to gain support from a lender if you can say, we really want, we have an opportunity to build our business based off of giving rides to seniors who need physical therapy coming from these specific places. Like if that's all you need to get your business approved and up and running, then I would do that because that feels likely, rather than like, we'll help anybody that needs moving. Again, you will do that, but the more specific you can be with your target and your opportunity, the more your lender is going to kind of see the vision and believe that. So that's would be my recommendation there. Okay, market analysis, and our first key point will be at the end of this one. So we want to demonstrate, the point of our market analysis is I want you to avoid the like Shark Tank mentality. If you've seen Shark Tank and the person walks in and they say, the organic dog treat business is a $3 trillion business and it's going to grow to this big. What we want to do in the market analysis is demonstrate in our addressable market. So like where we would actually hope to get a customer from, we want to try and paint the picture for whoever's reading this. We want to lay the land, really kind of paint the picture for them on like, what does it look like here? Who are the players involved? How competitive is it? Is it growing? That type of thing is what we want to talk about. So when we're talking about the industry, we're not talking about like the macro industry of non-emergency medical transport as a whole. We're talking about it in Indianapolis, right? Like where I hope to get a customer from. That's what we're talking about here. So industry overview, talk about it, local industry overview. So that could be, does your city have an aging population? Whatever you want, you seize the opportunity, whatever inspired you to get into this, that's what you want to talk about there. Your competitor analysis is going to be a big one. I would focus more on the direct competitors here, because indirect competitors, now who your direct competitors are is already out of your control. The indirect competitors are even more so out of your control, right? So if this says like Uber and Lyft, like, yeah, those things are just going to exist, but that's probably not the first choice for, the individuals you could be serving. So let's focus on direct competitors and who are the most similar businesses to what you're hoping to start. So people who are transporting the same type of people in the same location to and from the same types of places you are. That's really what you want to focus on here. So you should know every single one of those people that exist in whatever radius you hope to serve. So if you're in a densely populated area, that could be 10, 15, 20 miles. If you're in a more spread out or rural area, that could be even a bigger spread out area than that. But you should know everyone that exists. Do something as simple as go to Google and search for that in your area. Zoom out a little bit, zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see where all those people are located. Heck, even, grab a screenshot of this, put that in your business plan right next to your competitor analysis. Another thing I would recommend doing in your competitor analysis is, let's see here. Right in this section, yes, it does say, along with their strengths and weaknesses. I was going to say, you should say what they do well and what they maybe don't do well. And that's not to be, overly critical of them, but it's to point out that, sorry, I'm clicking all over because I don't know where I'm at. It's to point out that, you want to give credit where credit is due. You want to recognize what people are doing well and why they're in business, but you also want to recognize the opportunities of something they may not be doing well, and that could be your advantage. So something as simple as going through all of the reviews So maybe when you've done this and I've identified this person, this business, and this business are actually my direct competitors, and these other ones don't really make as much sense for what I'm doing. Then I go through all of their reviews. I go through their website, all of their socials, go through all of that and try to get some takeaways of like, wow, people really don't like using this business because they have terrible, the condition of their vehicles are bad, or they run late, or, whatever that thing might be, and include that in your business plan. So 3 to 5 direct competitors, what they do well, what they don't do well, and how that correlates to an opportunity for you. Again, elaborate on your target market like we've already talked about. And then a market opportunity is if there's anything unique that, again, is kind of like this emerging opportunity that you could take advantage of. So that could be, sadly, like an aging population, and maybe there's not a lot of people serving that. It could be maybe there's a new, like even in Indianapolis, not far from me, there's a really large new hospital being built, and that will probably create some sort of more demand for, transportation of people wanting to go to that facility. So like that could be, a market opportunity. So you can talk about that here. But key point number 1, again, we'll go through all 5 of these pretty quickly here after this point. So it's one thing to just do what I just showed there, and me demonstrating the map and doing that research is kind of part 1 of this key point. But if we can provide, it's one thing to talk about it, but if we can provide specific examples of that local research. So it's one thing to say, yeah, there's a demand, there's room in the market for us. It's another thing of like, can I actually show that on paper, or with data somehow? So whatever we can do to demonstrate that just upgrades our business plan. So there's some examples here, but number 3 is my favorite probably. And that's perform keyword research to observe if there's positive or negative trends in searches for the service in your area. So we want to see, are people looking for what we want to provide more or less these days? One tool that allows us to do that, you can create a free Google Ads account, and you can come to this keyword planner tool, and I can put in what I want to see. I want to see how often people are searching for these things in the Indianapolis area. And it's going to do some nice things for us. One, it's going to give us some related keyword ideas just to get an idea of what people are searching for. And if we ever wanted to advertise it, the competition for the ads is low. So that's what that means. But, it'll show us how often people are searching for that. So that's indicating you're at a minimum new potential customers, right? Like if someone is searching 210 people a month in my target area are searching for that, you wouldn't search for that if you already knew who you wanted to contact, right? So that's every month a new potential customer. And then the most important thing I think is this year-over-year change. So this is our trend data. So I can see, year-over-year 22% growth in non-emergency medical transportation, 325% growth in medical transport in Indianapolis, 133% growth in medical transport service. So I'm starting to see like, yeah, it is growing, right? But this is just the demand side, an indication that there's a growing need in people searching for the service I want to provide. And then the supply side of that equation, because you always have demand and supply, or supply and demand. The supply of that is going to be the competitor research we just talked about. So you do that. How many people, who are the players in town? Are there a lot of players in town? Is it saturated? Is it highly competitive? If not, so maybe it's like, okay, there's only a couple of really viable partners involved or players involved in town. And then I come over here and I look and say like, there's some really positive trending direction, volume here, some interest here. Put that in your business plan in that section. That's what makes that section kind of come alive and really powerful. So grab screenshots from this, throw that in your business plan. Okay, marketing and sales strategy. So, again, sounds probably pretty generic. Like, what are you going to do to market your business, make sure people can find it, grow your business? What tactics or strategies are you going to employ there? We won't talk about this one in great detail because you should just have your own version of whatever's listed here. So talk about your products and services, how you're going to price your stuff. Probably if you're going to have insurance involved, you should talk about that here. Sales strategy, are you going to do cold calling? Are you going to do referral partner building? Like talk about that. So this is kind of all minimum requirements. You'll say, yeah, we're going to have a website. We're going to be active on socials. We're going to do advertising. You should talk about that in here. What sets this section apart is just like the last section, can we demonstrate how we're actually going to acquire customers? So it's one thing to say, we're going to do all of these things to try and reach people. It's another thing if we can give some sort of what's called traction, or is like almost like proof that like when it comes to day one, like there's going to be customers. And this industry is a little difficult to do that, mainly because the best versions of traction and demonstrating traction is if you can do anything before you actually officially launch. So, you know, in other industries that could be like if you wanted to open a bakery, and before you officially opened it, maybe you started making things and selling them at farmers markets and whatnot, right? So you can generate some customers, some history there before you officially launch the business. That would be an example of traction. Non-emergency medical transport is a little more difficult because there's some more red tape involved. So, you know, there's going to be some licensing involved, some certifications involved. You have to have a vehicle. Like there's going to be some different hurdles. So the best advice I usually would give for this type of section is if it's possible for you to start doing it in some unofficial capacity first, like a side gig, but that's probably gonna be a little difficult in this industry. So the next best thing to pre-launch revenue is going to be like pre-launch names on a list. So that could be start contacting who you think your target market is. Are those going to be referrals from, are those going to be people from physical therapy appointments? You know, figure out who that target market is going to be, and then start doing the research and getting a list of the places where you would find those customers. So if those are going to be referrals from primary care physicians or physical therapists, start contacting them. Be like, you know, we're in the process of getting this business launched. Is this, you know, a need that you have? Would you be interested in forming a partnership if we could provide these services? So if you could come to your lender and say, we've got 7 different practices or clinics interested in partnering with us to have us help transport their patients, boom, that's great, because you're no longer starting at square one. You actually have some traction there, right? So that's how you level up that section. It's one thing to say, and you should say, we're gonna have a website, we're gonna do all these things. It's a huge upgrade if you can say, oh, plus we've already done all this work and we have this thing lined up, which greatly increases our chances of being successful. That's music to a lender's ear. Okay, moving along to operations and management. Not a lot to say in this section. You're gonna know this detail best about your business from doing research. So here you're just gonna talk about like, how is the business gonna work? How are you going to manage the team, the fleet, the certifications you need, the insurance stuff. So that's just gonna be the research you need to do in your specific location about the licensing you need and all of that stuff. And then make sure that makes it into your business plan. So this section's not, how do I say this? It's not going to make your business plan, but it could certainly break your business plan. So your operations and management aren't gonna set you apart, but if you underdo or under research this section, that will really hurt you. The one key point that I will make is make sure you highlight relevant industry experience. So you as the owner, you wanna make sure that you demonstrate to your lender, again, I keep saying demonstrate, you need to show them that you know what you're getting yourself into and you know what you're doing. And if you personally don't have all of the experience and the skill set to do that, supplement that with other people. So adding a partner to the business, like an owner, hiring a key employee, a key manager, like surrounding yourself with people who fill the gaps that you don't have, whether that is skills or experience. So I don't say that to be harsh, it's just the reality, right? That's a big red flag for lenders. When I was a lender, happened all the time. Someone would come to us and say, hey, I want to open up a new sandwich shop. But they had been a marketing executive for 10 years. And so at first glance, it's kind of like, why is a marketing person trying to open up a sandwich shop? And that might be a tough connection to make. So, but that person was in marketing for a long time. So it probably means they're really good at selling things. They're probably good at, you know, marketing the sandwich shop. So those are strengths, and they should talk about that in the business plan, but they should also supplement their experience with someone who's managed a restaurant before, managed a store before. You know, there's trade-offs to that. So that's the main thing, is talk about what transferable skills do you have or experience that you have. Like if you've done this before, talk about that in here. If you haven't, but your partner has done this before, talk about that in the business plan and what skills you bring to the table too. So you want to make sure your lender, when they read this section, they have no doubt, like, oh yeah, they definitely know what they're doing. Like that's what you're trying to take away from that section. All right, moving on to the big one here, financial projections. So, here we've got our startup costs outlined, the funding we're gonna need. We've got a little breakdown. I know this probably kind of zoomed out. Let me try to zoom in just a little bit. We've got a little breakdown of our first 5 years, the top line financial items here, our fleet broken down by revenue, by specific categories in the fleet. We've got some key ratios. We've got some expenses lined out, like our overhead expenses. And then we've got our, our 5 years of our income statement or profit and loss pro forma. So these are all projections, cash flow, and a balance sheet here. We've got a break-even point, some sales growth. So key point 4, actually let me just back up real quick. All full transparency, all of that, because this is the section of the business plan where people get most overwhelmed. We've got a video here of how to complete your projections, how to do all of your projections for your non-emergency medical transport business. They were made using this projection template. It's specific to this industry. Again, I mentioned we've helped more than 50,000 small businesses create their projections. We've done that through 2 ways. One, we have templates where you can make your own projections, which is what I'm showing you here. And 2, you could also hire our team to do your projections for you. So this template exists. You're only editing these blue fields here. So you're only putting in the things where it's pre-filled out, so you have some helpful starting information. I know my face is kind of covering some of it, but again, we're only editing these blue boxes. You'll put in details about, it's very simple information that you'll probably already know about your business. We've got our monthly expenses here, like our insurance and permits and rent or any of that kind of stuff. And then if you have any salaried employees, like our drivers are in here, and then it's going to generate all of these financial statements for us. Everything that your lender needs automatically generated. But having financial projections is not key point number 4. You have to have financial projections. That's a minimum requirement, especially if you're a startup business plan. You have to have financial projections for the application process. So, you can grab, and if you wait to actually, I think it's included in here. Yeah, right here. There's a link to the template, 20% discount on it. It's already less than $100. I promise you it's worth the money. It comes with free support. Get your projections taken care of, or again, you can hire our team to do it for you in just a couple of days. But you have to have projections, and so I would go ahead and grab that. But key point number 4, let me scroll back down here, is that your financial projections need to be realistic. So, you need to do some benchmarking, do some research to make sure that your numbers are within industry norms and, and realistic. I already had said that. And so you might be wondering, well, how do I do that? Because you're probably already overwhelmed with the idea that you have to make projections. How are you supposed to know if they're going to be realistic or not? And that's a great question. I'm going to show you how to do that. So assuming you used a tool like this to create your projections, you've got all these wonderful numbers in here to play with. All we're going to do is we're going to go out and do some Googling. That's all it takes. So things like profit margin, we've got all these key performance indicators or KPIs that we can benchmark against. So you can go Google it. You can use a tool like ChatGPT, where I just asked it, generate a list of typical financial benchmarks and averages for an NEMT business, like profit margin, etc. We've got some great things in here, right? Average profit margin, 10 to 15%. I'm going to go back to my projections and see, where do I shake out in that? Profit margin, we're a little high, 19, 30, 31%, 32%. So we can see why that's the case. So if we're a little bit high on that, then we need to go back through to our numbers and be like, okay, why does that seem a little bit high? And maybe we come to the conclusion that, well, that's as, as low as we can really get it. Like, that's what we think is going to happen. Or like our revenue numbers, maybe, they're on the conservative side, right? So you're just going to do that. You're going to look at your projections, go out, benchmark it. If it seems a little off, you come back to the drawing board, you tweak some of the numbers, like some of the inputs. Maybe your truck's going to cost a little bit more than you thought. Maybe your revenue is going to be a little bit lower than you thought. And you just balance that back and forth. And then you have a set of more realistic projections so that when you hand them over to your lender, they're not shell-shocked by that, right? So you kind of want to make that first impression good. Using a tool like that is also really helpful because you understand where your numbers came from because you built your projections. So that's key point number 4. That brings us to the end of the business plan. And one more key point number 5. This is more of a recommendation or advice, and that is demonstrate skin in the game, or be prepared to demonstrate skin in the game. So now this is not something you probably want to put in your business plan, but keep in your back pocket. especially if you're seeking an SBA loan, there's going to be the conversation of like collateral and, you know, some myths to dispel real quick. As an owner of more than 20% of the business, you will be required to personally guarantee the loan. That means if the business fails to repay the loan, that you will be responsible for paying it back personally. People will say all the time, you know, I want the loan in the business's name and not my name personally. That's just not an option, especially if you're trying to get an SBA loan. So just be aware of that. They're going to want collateral for the loan. The good thing about an NEMT business is that presumably you're going to have to buy a vehicle, you know, so if you get a $30,000 loan, $50,000 loan, your collateral will probably be the vehicle that you purchase. So that's a good sign for this type of business. There is some collateral in the business. But yeah, just basically being prepared to demonstrate that you're willing to share in the risk for the business and not just assuming the lender is going to take all of the risk. And there's different ways you can do that, but I'll leave it at that for now. One last thing that I'll point out that you can grab down in the description for free is this SBA loan application checklist. If you do plan to get an SBA loan, this has tons of helpful information in it about like what types of SBA loans exist, where to find an SBA lender, what's a typical process, what documents will you need, some expectations setting. You know, there's lots of good information in here. So that's linked down in the description of the video as well. So you can grab your own copy of that. But there you have it. That is how to write how to write your non-emergency transport business plan with some tips and tricks. If you have questions, leave a comment down below. Contact us at support@projectionhub.com. I would love to help you personally, whether that's with your business plan or with your projections. And yeah, we wish you the best of luck getting your business started, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.